These swords were not made by any troll.
Nor were they made by any smith among men. These were forged in Gondolin by the High Elves of the First Age.
The sword Glamdring was the one wielded by Gandalf the Grey Wizard during the time of the Hobbit, and later during the time of the Lord of the Rings and his time as Gandalf the White. Forged in the ancient elf metropolis of Gondolin for their High King during the Goblin Wars, the name translated in common speech means foe hammer. A legendary blade such as this is more than worthy to be wielded by a great wizard such as Gandalf. And that too makes it our next subject for a prop replica build. If this is your first time watching, then welcome to this monthly series where I create prop replicas out of cheap and easy to use products. This is DIY Prop Culture Builds. In the late 90s, when great film director Peter Jackson started to develop his film adaptation of J.R.R. Tolkien's The Lord of the Rings, he brought on legendary concept artists John Howe and Alan Lee, as well as the master swordsmith Peter Lyon. The result was a vast catalog of beautiful weapons that included Glamdring the Foehammer. This sword would go on to be wielded by the great stage and film actor Ian McKellen to bring Gandalf the Grey to life, and thus the film carnation of Glamdring was born. At 47 centimeters long, the beautiful, stepped, leaf-bladed sword was weighted out with a fuller. Its smooth, egg-shaped pommel leads into a beautifully sculpted black and blue leather hilt, and its upturned crossguard is beset with runic writings and a sky blue gem. All put together, this remains one of the most accurate depictions of a Tolkien sword in the entire film series. For this build, you'll need a 1x3 plank of pine, or similar, modeling clay, sculpting wire, a Dremel, sandpaper, a carving knife, aluminum tape, electrical tape, black or blue leather, and the all-clad gloss black base coat, and chroming lacquers. In order to get my dimensions right, I found a reference image online and blew it up to scale. I printed that out and created a template with it. I tacked that template to the plank and traced it over for the proper dimensions. I thought it might be easier to cut out this sword with my Dremel and then sculpt the blade further by carving it with a knife, as I had made swords in the past by painstakingly carving out the blade from the full plank. I, however, was kind of wrong, as I thought it would be a lot easier, and it was to a point, but it took a few days of really going at this wood a few hours at a time with the Dremel. Once it was finally cut out, I carved down the blade, and using the Dremel, I carved in the fuller at the center of the blade. Once this was done, I went about making the hilt. Using the tang as a base, I sculpted the handle and pommel with the clay, and then using wire to create a sturdy base for the crossguard, I created the crossguard. After letting that all dry, I used the Dremel to cut in the runes into the handle. I then sanded down the shapes as smooth as possible to get them ready for painting. I'm going to go about metallizing this sword using two methods. For the crossguard and pommel, I used the all-clad metallizer paints, to give them a metal look. If you've watched this series before, you know that I've recently been experimenting with these paints, and although they have quite a learning curve, I'm getting better with the finicky paint system as time goes on. For the blade, I went about doing this the old-fashioned tried and true method of using the aluminum plumber's tape. You'll have to let me know which method you think works better. I personally like both of them about equally as much. They both have their unique advantages and disadvantages. I was going to use this black pleather that I found at Walmart to finish the handle, but after trying and failing to get the fabric material to form to the ribbed shape, I tore it off and decided to go with a good old-fashioned electrical tape. Using some blue masking tape and a bead of hot glue, I created the gems, and then set them into the hilt above the runes where I had carved a space for them. We're done with the sword, but not technically done with the build, as I'm a bit of a completionist, so I built a scabbard to go along with it as well. Using some cardboard, I traced out the blade and cut it to the right size to create a shell that would snugly hold the blade. I then attached the two pieces with the wooden dowels so that the scabbard would hold some rigidity when it was empty. Using the clay, I created the metal capes of the scabbard and molded them to fit the crossguard snugly. After they were dry, I chromed them with the aluminum tape and used the leather to wrap the scabbard. With the sword fitted snugly, we have completed this build. So there you go, you have your very own replica of Glamdring, the faux hammer. This build was a bit more difficult than I thought it was going to be. Well, that's not really the right word. I think time-consuming is a better word. Having had issues with the Dremel and a few hiccups occur while building the scabbard, with only a few days left in August, I can only hope I can get this out before the end of the month. I hope you enjoyed this build. If you built along with me, then let me know how yours came out. If you have a suggestion for a future build, then leave it in a comment below. As although this was a build that I had planned on doing myself for a while, I plan on doing another recommendation for next month's build. As always, thank you for watching. If you like this video and want to see more like it, then subscribe and turn on the bell to get notified when I upload next.